Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of The Technical Gentleman. In today's video, we're going to be going over another basic educational video. We're actually going to be talking about how the internet works in this video. This is going to be a really non-technical explanation of this. It's designed just to give you the baseline of knowledge that you need going forward once we start getting into, actually going through some tutorials of how to kind of secure some of your online life. You just need to know some of the really basic stuff here so that you can kind of see what this process looks like. You can see which parties have access to which information, just so that you know kind of under the hood a little bit how things are working. So I put together this little PowerPoint presentation for this just because I thought it would be useful to, it's complicated enough that I thought it would be useful to have some graphics and stuff going along with this. So I hope that you find this interesting, and we'll go ahead and get started here. So if you've ever looked into the internet and asked the question of kind of what the internet is and how it works, you've probably heard somebody say before that the internet is nothing more than a bunch of computers that are all connected together. And that is essentially correct. Every website that you visit has to be hosted on an actual physical computer located somewhere. We usually call those computer servers. So when you go and you connect to Facebook or Google, understand that there is an actual physical computer. It's got all the same components that your computer does. It's just a whole lot more powerful. And there's probably a lot of them that are actually hosting that particular website. And without that computer, there's no website. So that's all the internet is. Each of those websites is identified by what we call an IP address. And this is just like you have a street address or you have a phone number. This is a unique identifier that identifies that computer in the world. Those IP addresses are also usually based in location. So if you were to go and search for a particular IP address, you're not only searching for the individual computer, but you're also getting location data about where that computer is. So that's important to note, and we'll follow up on that in a second here. So these are some examples of IP addresses. This is kind of what they look like. They're always just four numbers separated by a period. The first one there, the 192.168.1.1, is this one up here. That's usually where your router is located in your home network. And you could usually, if you were to go type this in, it might be 0.1 instead of 1.1 at the end there, but usually you can type that in and get like a web application that has all your router settings in it. The 127.0.0.1 is usually how your computer identifies itself. So this is going to get too complicated, but 8.8.8.8 is actually Google's IP address. And if you were to you could, and 1.1.1.1 is Cloudflare. So if you were to go in your web browser and actually type in 1.1.1.1 instead of cloudflare.com, you could type that IP address and you would actually get the website. And if you know the IP address of the website you're trying to connect to, you can actually do that with just the IP address. So it's interesting because you don't usually type when you go to your browser. You don't really type and a random series of numbers like that. Nobody would ever remember the IP address of the website they were trying to connect to if that's how we did things. You're typing in a domain name, so you're typing in www.google.com to connect to Google. You would never type in a random series of numbers like this. So how does your computer know? If you're just typing in a random name, but everything's identified by these numbers, how does your computer know which numbers goes with which names? And the answer to that is the domain name system, or DNS. And this is just like back in the day when you wanted to find somebody's phone number. You didn't know necessarily the phone number, but you knew their name, and you'd open up a phone book and nobody has those anymore. But back in the day, we used to have phone books, and you'd open up a phone book and you'd look through, you'd find the name, and then you'd match that up with a number next to it. And the DNS system works exactly the same way. So this is actually the first step in connecting to any website is going to be to connect to one of these DNS servers. So lastly here, I actually made this little stupid graphic, and it's designed to just demonstrate this process. So the first thing you're doing, if you want to connect to Facebook, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to reach out to one of these DNS servers. Those are usually, unless you're specifying that you want a different, unless you're like specifying in your router or in your computer that you want to use a different DNS server, these DNS servers are usually provided to you by your internet service provider. So if you're getting your internet through Spectrum, you're going to be reaching out to Spectrum's DNS servers, and you would basically reach out to that DNS server. You're going to say, hey, I want to connect to www.facebook.com. And that DNS server will look up, it'll cross-compare the domain name with the IP address of the actual physical computer that you're going to connect to in order to make that connection. And then it will send it back to your computer. So now your computer has that IP address. And then what it's going to do is you're going to reach out to your internet service provider again a second time with the IP address of the server that you want to connect to, of the website you want to connect to. And then the ISP will make that final connection between your computer and the website that you want to visit. Now, when we're looking at this graphic here, we want to, for the sake of what we're trying to do here, which is security, we want to take a minute to consider which parties in this situation have access to which information. So for one, and keep in mind that even as you're connecting to one of these web servers, your computer also has an IP address that's a unique identifier of your computer in the world. Otherwise, how does Google know to send back when you search something? How does Google know to send your computer the search results? And the answer is that you have your own unique IP address that's also broadcasting to the world as you're connected to the internet, and that uniquely identifies you to the world. So keep that in mind. So when the first step here, you're reaching out to this DNS server, whoever's providing that DNS server is obviously going to know where you're connecting to, because they're going to see that, okay, I've got a request from your IP address that is asking for the IP address of this website. So the DNS server knows where you're connecting to. It's usually provided by your ISP, but you could change that. Like Google has DNS servers you could choose to connect to. And then if you choose to connect to Google's DNS servers, they're usually, people connect to them because they're usually a little bit faster than the ones that come default in your with your ISP. But if you're connecting to Google's DNS servers, Google knows every single website that you're connecting to, because every single website you're connecting to, you're reaching out to their servers first and asking basically to use their phone book. That's basically what's going on. So DNS server knows who you're connecting to. The web server that you're connecting to, the website you're connecting to, be that Facebook or Google or whoever, they are going to be able to see your IP address. So they're going to know exactly who you are and where you are. And so you can kind of do all this stuff locally on your computer. You can, turn on incognito mode and, block all the cookies and all the trackers and all that stuff. But so long as you're broadcasting your IP address, none of that matters. They're going to see exactly who you are. And thirdly, your internet service provider is the one facilitating all of this. So they're going to see, number one, they're going to see which DNS servers you're connecting to. And number two, they're going to see which web server you're connecting to, because they're going to have all of that information. So in this particular scenario, when you're, and this is kind of the normal way of doing things. This is probably the way you're connecting right now. In this particular scenario, every party involved has all of the information. So you can see where the problem lies in this, right? If you care about privacy in this particular situation, privacy is basically bunk. Your internet service provider knows exactly who you're connecting to. The website you're connecting to knows exactly what you're doing on that website and exactly who you are. Your DNS server that you're connecting to, they know exactly which website you're connecting to. So it's a pretty, generally speaking, it's a pretty insecure process. We're going to talk now that we've explained this in the upcoming videos we're going to be making. We're going to start talking about how do you actually make this process a little bit more secure for yourself, so that all of the parties that are involved with this don't have all of your information. So that'll probably be coming up in the next video. So until then, thanks for tuning in. I hope you liked this video. If you found this to be beneficial and you want to see more content and find out how to actually secure this process, please do subscribe to the channel, and we'll hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.